Hello, and welcome to my thoughts of the month for the month of June 2020. 2020 has been quite the year, and now in the month of June, we are watching as gay pride parades are being canceled all over in deference, in respect, and in fear of the coronavirus, and in wisdom. But that does not mean that these individuals, these gatherings are still not happening on some level, some coming together. They are quite the juxtaposition to things like the George Floyd murder, all of the riots that have happened, the pandemic. It is a month of mixed messages. And here in the month of June is a time when we are going to watch many things go away to be replaced, hopefully, by better things. And sometimes it's going to be a painful process. But pain always happens when there's growth. June is bursting with flowers and with birds and singing and the desire to celebrate the oncoming summer, at least here in the northern hemisphere. And at the same time, people are wary and scared and cautious, and people are angry. All of those emotions are out there. And all we can do is respect that everybody is having their own emotional roller coaster for any number of reasons. Maybe it's the canceling of the Pride Parade. Maybe it is the violent way in which George was murdered. Maybe it was the fact that it doesn't seem like it ever changes and people continue to support a system or seemingly support a system where inequities of all kind thrive, and that the people in power are somehow above it all and forget what it's like to be the average person. I can tell you that I know what it's like to be a gay person. I know what it's like to be an ADD, ADHD person, an uber creative person. I know what it's like to be lots of things, but I can't tell you that I know what it's like to be a person of color. But that does not mean I cannot sympathize or even empathize with the unfairity of it all. We are being called in this June 2020 to find compassion, to find empathy. And partially it's about what we hear as much as what's being said. For some people, when they hear a phrase like Black Lives Matter, what they hear, ... is my life is less. Why do their lives matter and mine doesn't? But that's not the intention with which it's said. What I hear is Black Lives Matter ... and need to be treated fairly and equally. And I believe that that's the intention that the group who started it had when they created or coined the term Black Lives Matter. I've heard many different explanations of how to try to get people to understand that seem to take umbrage at why Black Lives Matter, as if it's a personal insult, as if somehow we're trying to make you less. When those of us who say it, whether we're a people of color or not, if we say Black Lives Matter, you feel somehow as if we're putting you down. But for those people who have that trigger response, that energy of, well, but what about me? Well, what about me? Well, what about me? What about the Black lives that are some of the poorest, some of the most mistreated people we have in this country. They don't want you to see them as better than you are. They just want to be recognized as equal. And they would like a seat at the table, just like 100 years ago, women wanted a seat at the table and wanted to vote. Like 50 years ago, 51 years ago, in Stonewall, when those riots were all about injustice, about suppression. Again, I cannot pretend what it's like to walk this world as a person of color. I know what it's like to walk this world as a person who has had prejudice used against them, that has experienced violence because of who I am, that has been treated unfairly for something I had no choice or control over. But I do not know what it is like to be a person of color. But you don't have to really know what it's like to be a person of color. If you can simply know what it's like to have been treated unfairly, to not have been given an equal opportunity or an equal shot at anything, whether it was the place on a sports team, whether it was a role in the school play, the position on the cheerleading team, the debate team, or a promotion at work where somebody's close friend or drinking buddy or something got something that you know in your heart of hearts you should have gotten, but didn't, for whatever reason. Find the time when you felt treated unfairly, and then imagine what that's like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Can you imagine what it's like to walk out in fear every day that you could get targeted for nothing more than the color of your skin? So let's not take all of this as personally attacking us. These are voices that are reaching out for equality. Like voices have been reaching out for equality since the founding of this country. Do not support or buy into the hateful rhetoric. And remember, we should all be proud of who we are, how we're born, and what we stand. Our pride in ourselves should never have to be at the cost of somebody else. If the only way that you can be proud is to subjugate, oppress, judge, be hateful, be violent to somebody else so you can be proud of who you are, then you have nothing to be proud of at all. Namaste.